Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to discuss about elasticity. It's a very important term in economics. So let's see what we can discuss today. We will try our best to know basic term of elasticity. So first, when we start going deep, before we know what is elasticity is. Well, elasticity is a measure of responsiveness of quantity demanded and quantity supplied to a change in one of its determinants, price. Maybe the determinant is price or something like that. So let's try elasticity. So we said that it means the responsiveness of quantity demanded or quantity supplied to the change of one of its determinants. So that is what elasticity is. So there is two types of elasticity. One is elasticity of demand, another one is elasticity of supply. So we will try to discuss both in this video. So first, let's discuss about the elasticity of demand. The first thing arises in our mind, what does it mean, elasticity of demand? It means a measure of how much the quantity demand of goods or service respond to the change in the price of that goods, and it will compute it as percentage. This is the difference. In elasticity, we have to calculate everything in percentage. We have to define everything in as percentage. That's when percentage change in quantity demanded versus percentage demanded or supply versus percentage change in price, or something like that, or one of the determinants. So this is what elasticity of supply means. Let's know about what are the determinants of elasticity of demand. Determinants. Determinants. What are determinants? Determinants are those things for which actually the elasticity of demand actually changes, or for those things why elasticity of demand or elasticity or responsiveness we can easily determine for any goods and services. So the first one for elasticity of demand, determinant number one is ability of close substitute. I think I don't have to write this because you are seeing in the screen. So number one is ability of close substitute. For example, like if you have tea and coffee at the same time in your hand or in your choice list. So if the price of one thing increased, what would you choose? Of course, you are going to shift to another one. So that is what the existing of close substitute may change the responsiveness to one responsiveness to either tea or coffee of your choice. So this is it. And number two is necessities versus luxuries. Obviously, in this case, necessities are slightly and almost inelastic because we don't have any other choice. We have to take or purchase those things. Like in your case or in our case, we have to purchase rice. We don't have any choice. So if the price of rice increased, we have no other choice. We have to purchase it. But in case of if we consider alcohol, or if you consider perfume, if the price of perfume increases, what would you do? Of course, you are not going to purchase it because you have much more choice. You must shift your demand, right? So it should be considered as elastic. You have so many choices. So increase in price may shift you to another thing. Number three is definition of the market. So I'm slightly, this is quite tough, but in case of broad market it's kind of elastic. In case of narrow market it's kind of inelastic. Sorry, I'm extremely sorry. In case of broad market it's kind of inelastic. In case of narrow market it's kind of elastic type. We will discuss later about this narrow market and broad market. What is this? I think this is things of a macroeconomics aspect, so we are not going to discuss about those in here. And fourth one is time horizon. Obviously you're seeing in my screen, so I'm not writing. So fourth one is time horizon. What does it mean? Time horizon, how is going to time affect the elasticity? Say today government increased the price of gasoline, so people are facing slightly trouble right now because the price of gas actually increased. So what if consider that after a period of time people will shift to different types of car. It could be electric car, it could be hybrid car that will adjust the demand of gasoline in a very long time. So the ultimate demand of gasoline will decrease or may shift to another thing just due to time. So these are the four determinants of elasticity of demand that actually motivate or that actually affect the elasticity of demand. So measurement. Right now we are going to see measurement of elasticity of demand. How are we going to measure the elasticity of demand? Obviously, at first we said in the definition that it includes actually percentage change of comparing two things. Let's assume if we want to define the law, it has a law by which we are going to measure the measure the elasticity of demand. So right here, notice it very carefully. Elasticity of demand is equal to percentage change in Q quantity demanded versus percentage change in price. So we see in here that percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. You are seeing this. So this is what the law of price elasticity of demand. So if we want to denote, so let's assume Q is indicating quantity demanded and P is equal to price. So this is our assumed. So as we said, percentage change in quantity, obviously we have two quantity right now because we are shifting one to another. So we have two quantity according to two price. So let's assume these are quantity Q1 for P1 and Q2 for P2. And if we want to add in graphically, so let's assume P1, P2, Q1, Q2. So this is what let's assume. So if we want to replace it or place it in here, so first one is percentage change in quantity demanded. So these are our two ingredients by which our movement point is from A to B. That means this one to this one. So how the percentage actually change, or what is the elasticity? So let's calculate percentage change in quantity demanded. That means we have to sum. So we have to find out the difference between Q1 and Q2. So let's assume this del Q divided by Q. Carefully notice in here, I wrote in here del Q means the difference between Q1 and Q2, and Q means the summation of Q1 and Q2. This means Q equal to Q1 plus Q2. This is what you have to notice it carefully. Q means Q1 plus Q2, total summation of Q1 and Q2. So this is what Q is, and 200. So this is what our percentage change in quantity demanded. So right now we have to divide by percentage change in price. So let's assume del P divided by P, and of course in this case del P means the difference between P1 and P2, and P means the summation of P1 and P2. That means P1 plus P2. So this is the main case, and into 100. So this is what our quantity elasticity of demand law is actually looks like. So we can make it simpler, so make it 100, and this is Q1, as we know through our simple mathematics. P2, we can make it more simple, that del Q by del P into P by Q. So this is the basic look of price elasticity of demand, maybe elasticity, the law of elasticity. This is what it looks like, but in this case it will consider as the price elasticity of demand. This is the law of price elasticity of demand. So we will use it mathematically to show how this law is actually known, or how this law actually help us to find out the elasticity or elastic, whether is good is elastic or inelastic. So notice this law very carefully and remind it for future users. Now we'll see the different variety of price elasticity of demand curve. I mean, whether the curve is elastic or not. Variety of demand curve. So there are 5 types of demand curve exist according to elasticity. So number 1 is perfectly elastic. I'm not showing, I'm denoting only one curve as P and Q, and you will consider rest other as the same. So number 1 is perfectly elastic, perfectly inelastic, sorry, perfectly inelastic. Number 1 is perfectly inelastic, and where the curve is vertical and ED is 0, elasticity is 0. And you can see as the price may increase or decrease, nothing is happening, the demand remaining same, quantity demand remaining same. So in this case it's perfectly inelastic, whether the price is rising or whatever it is happening, and there is no effect on the demand remaining same. Okay, second one is inelastic demand. Say this curve. Sorry, second one I'm going to mention because this is much flatter, so I'm going to say it as Inelastic. Inelastic, where the it is equal to 1, because as we can see, the P1 and P2, the difference of P1 and P2 actually didn't affect on the quantity demanded. Both are remaining same, and it's quite flatter is in the middle point where the ED is equal to 1. This is what the unit elastic means, where the elasticity of demand is mentioned as 1. Okay. In case of inelastic, the curve looks like this, and you can see price is changing a lot, but the quantity demand is changed very little. So this is what inelastic demand curve looks like. Inelastic. Number 4 is elastic. In this curve, you can see the price changed little, but the quantity demanded changes are very far, or very more, on too much comparing with the price. Say the price is actually changed this much, but the quantity demanded changes are very long portion. So this is what elastic demand curve looks like. And the fifth one is perfectly elastic, and in which the demand curve looks like this, and it's horizontal. So the D is here, and you can see the price is not changing, price remaining same, and in the same price people will able to have different quantity. In case of inelastic, the elasticity, the value of elasticity of demand is inelastic. The value is less than 1. In case of elasticity, the value of elasticity of demand is greater than 1. And in case of the fifth one, perfectly elastic. In case of perfectly elastic, the value of ED is kind of similar to infinity. This means it's infinity, because similar price but huge quantities exist, and the price is not going to change. In same price, also you can extend your quantity of demand. Quantity demanded. So these are the five types of demand curve according to elasticity. So we have already idea about the value of elasticity of demand, whether by using this value we can find out whether the curve is elastic, inelastic, perfectly elastic, or unitary elastic. So we have already known about the value. We have already known about the law of elasticity. So we are going to apply it and find out whether our example curve is elastic or inelastic. So let's calculate. Calculation. Let's assume this is our figure 1, and this is our figure 2. So we have a curve here, and we're using value. Let's say is price 5 and 3, and in this case quantity demanded is, let's assume 5 by 8. In our figure 2, similar case, say price is similar 5 and 3 and change is 5 and 6, quantity demanded. So these are our two model graph for calculation or make our logic and what we found, and let's see how we're going to apply the rule of elasticity. So let's find out elasticity for these two curves, I mean elasticity of demand for this curve. For figure 1, let's find out, as we know the earlier elasticity of demand, let's establish the law. We know, we solved before, that del Q by del P into P by Q. So this is our elasticity of demand law. So let's assume this one is P1, this one is P2, this one is Q1, and this two is Q2. So let's assume our price reached to 5 to 3. 5 to 3. So this went to 5 to 8 according to quantity demand. So let's do it, but before establishing it, we want to clarify something. Say as we have P1 and P2 and Q1 and Q2, whatever is happen, of course, if you place like Q1 minus Q2, obviously you must mention it like P1 minus P2. Don't do anything stupid if you see that the Q1 is larger than Q2, so we must take a larger form of P in here and the lesser form of P in here. Don't do it. Obviously don't do it. If no matter what it is, you must use, if you place Q1 in the first place, obviously you must place P1 in the first place. If you place Q2 in the first place, obviously you're going to place P2 in the first place. Like in here we placed Q1 in the first place, Q1 minus Q2, and the second place in the divided by P1 minus P2. We can't use P2 minus P1. Like say in this graph example, say the 5, I mean P1 is larger than P2, but Q2 is larger than Q1. So if you think it's logical to say P1 minus P2 but Q2 minus Q1, it's not true. Okay, so if you do something like that, your actual law will be like, looks like, if you wrote Q1 minus Q2, you have to wrote P1 minus P2. On the other hand, if you wrote Q2 minus Q1 on the above, you have to wrote P2 minus P1. You can't exchange the both from in both cases. Like you can't use Q2 minus Q1 above and P1 minus P2 below. You must have to use P2 minus P1. So in here, if you use that type of thing, your result won't be as much expected, or your result won't be correct. So in this case, let's assume we're considering P1 and Q1 in the first position. So the first thing will be Q1 minus Q2 and P1 minus P2 into P means P1 plus P2 and Q means Q1 plus Q2. So this is what our physical, I'm extending because you don't have to write like this, you can directly do it, but as a basic learner I'm showing everything here. So what is the value of Q1? 5. minus Q2 8, P1 5 minus 3 as P2, P1 plus P2 5 plus 3, and Q1 plus Q2, that means 5 plus 8. So in here we have 3 and below we have 2, and here we have 8 and below we have 13. So what is it? Minus 3 into 4 by 13. So minus 12 by 13. So what is the value of 8? 12 divided by 13. So the value is minus 9 to 3. So this is our elasticity value for this curve. As we seen earlier, that if the value is less than 1, it will be inelastic. Okay, if the value is less than 1, it's inelastic. So in the second case, here find out the elasticity of demand for figure 2. So Q P Q P. I'm doing it directly. Let's see. Del Q is 6 minus 5. Del P is 3 minus 5 into Q is 11, and P is P and Q. P is 8 and 11. So in here is 1, in here is minus 2, 8 by 11. So it's minus 4 by 11, and the result is 0.363. So we have two values for our both graph, and where we can see both results are below 1 or less than 1. Just keep in mind in one thing: if we can see both value has negative sign in front of the value, but forget about it. You don't have to count the negative sign in front of this value. What you have to do is just consider the absolute value what you find from this mathematics. Absolute term. Forget about that negative sign. This negative sign arrived just due to the downward sloping of the demand curve, nothing else. So forget about that. What you have to consider is just consider the absolute value of elasticity and just compare it with 1. If the absolute value is below 1, and obviously we saw that in our both graph, in our both figure, we have found that both values are less than 1. So in both case, these two graphs are actually inelastic. Say, let's consider another graph by which we are going to use two price, like is 5 against 4, and let's say is 50 against 100. So what could be the elasticity? Let's ED find out elasticity of demand for this curve. So number one is let's consider 100 minus 50 as this, and let's consume 104 is 4 minus 5 as this, into total price, that's made 150 divided by total quantity is 9. So in here it's a 5 minus 1 into 150 into 9. So what is it? Let's see. 50 into 250 divided by what the okay, the result is minus 833.33. As we can see, the value is much greater than absolute. We have to avoid the minus, so the value is 833.33, which is actually greater than 1, and this will consider as elastic. So this graph is expressing the elastic. This graph is actually elastic, so the elasticity of demand is 833.33. That means if the 1 unit change against the if the 1 unit of price actually changes, the quantity demanded of the goods actually changes 833.33%. So this is what we see how we're going to calculate the elasticity. So let's consider one thing. If the ED is greater than 1, it will be considered as elastic. If the elasticity of demand is less than 1, it will consider as inelastic. If the elasticity is equal to 1, it is unitary elastic. And if the elasticity of demand, the value of elasticity of demand is equal to 0, that is actually perfectly inelastic. And if the elasticity of demand is equal to infinity, that will be considered as perfectly elastic. So these are the key values, these are the 5 values of our elasticity of demand, and we will use it for further, and you guys can use it to compare the mathematics of elasticity of demand and find out if the value, if product is elastic, or whether it is elastic or inelastic or whatever it is. So let's see to other basic things, and we are not going to discuss those, and just we are going to know what is it is. Another important topic is income elasticity of demand. Income elasticity of demand. Income elasticity of demand. What is income elasticity of demand? Income elasticity of demand actually is a measure of how much the quantity demanded of goods respond to the change in consumers' income, and of course we have to compute it in percentage. So that's mean if we say income elasticity of demand is equal to percentage change in QD divided by percentage change in income. So this is what our basic law for income elasticity of demand. The second topic is cross price elasticity of demand. Cross price elasticity of demand. What does it mean? The cross price elasticity of demand is a measure of how much the quantity demanded of one good respond to a change in the price of another good. Say you have good 1 and good 2, and in this case, I mean in this cross price elasticity of demand, we will see if the price of good 2 changes, what would be the how much the quantity demanded actually change for good 1. So that is what the cross price elasticity of demand is. So the basic law of cross price elasticity, the basic law of cross price elasticity is, I mean equation is percentage change in quantity demanded of good 1 divided by percentage change in price of good 2. So this is what our cross price elasticity of demand is, and this is how it is actually expressed. So this was all about the price elasticity of demand and its process. If you have any question about the price elasticity of demand, let me know. I will try to fix it. So now I'm going to express and discuss about the price elasticity of supply. So I'm going to discuss about the price elasticity of supply right now. So let's know about the price elasticity of supply means. What does it mean of price elasticity of supply? Well, price elasticity of supply is actually a measure of how much the quantity supplied of a good respond to the change in the price of that goods, and we have to compute it in percentage, obviously. So this is what the price elasticity of supply actually means. So usually, as usual, and the basic law of price elasticity of supply is the percentage change in quantity supplied. Quantity supplied divided by percentage change in price of that good. So this is the basic equation of price elasticity of supply, and we'll try to find a basic mathematics to see about the price elasticity of supply. So variety, there are 5 varieties of price elasticity of supply curve. So like previous, one is elastic, another one is inelastic, then unit elastic, then perfectly elastic, and perfectly inelastic. These are the 5 types. So let's see how these curves looks like. So in case of perfectly inelastic supply curve, in case of perfectly inelastic supply curve, it is actually looks like a vertical line. It looks like a vertical line, and the price elasticity of supply is equal to 0 in this case. When it is perfectly inelastic. In case of perfectly inelastic supply curve, it's horizontal, and it's equal, the value of elasticity for this curve is 0. Number 2, inelastic curve. Inelastic, and the curve is kind of horizontal but flatter, less flatter. So this is how it looks like. So this is how it looks like, and the value of inelasticity in here is equal to is less than 1. So in case of inelastic, the elasticity of supply will be less than 1. Okay, number 3 is unit elastic. In case of unit elastic supply curve is kinda will have 50 degree here and 50 degree here, and it's a basic very polite supply curve. And in case of this unit elastic, in case of this supply, it's equal to 1. The value of elasticity is equal to 1 for this curve. So the fourth one is elastic supply curve, and it is kind of flatter. It's much flatter, like the supply curve looks like this. You can see it here. Units are actually similar in here and similar in here. So in such kind of case, oh sorry, not similar in here, but this kind is kind of flatter, and in this case the elasticity value is greater than 1. Each actually similar in unit elastics, so similar and similar in here. So in this case it won't be similar. The value of elasticity is greater than 1. The fifth one is perfectly elastic. In such kind of supply curve, it looks like this. It's horizontal, and the elasticity value for this curve is equal to infinity. So whatever happens, the elasticity of supplied, the quantity supplied actually can be increased in the same price. So this is how the perfectly elastic supply actually looks like. So let's see to math in this regard. I mean in case of elasticity of supply. So let's consider one graph. This is what, and our graph looks like this. So the value is 455, and in case of quantity supplied 100 and 200. So let's find out the elasticity. Yes, equal to del Q by del P into P by Q. So what is del Q? Del Q is 200 minus 100 is 100, and what is del P is 200. Okay. Okay. Yeah. 5 minus 4. So 5 minus 4 into P is 9 and Q is 300. So 1 by 1 into 9 by 3 is equal to 3, which is greater than 1. So its elastic curve as the elasticity of price elasticity of supply is greater than 1. So the curve is elastic. And mention one thing, there is no negative sign in here just because of supply. The supply curve is positively sloped, so there won't be any negative sign in case of price elasticity of supply. But in case of price elasticity of demand, there will be a negative sign. We have to consider the absolute value of that price elasticity of demand or elasticity to find out the basic term whether it's elastic or not. But in case of supply, we don't face any dilemma because it's positively sloped and there is no negative sign in here. So let's consider another curve in case let's consider it's a supply curve and it's elastic. In this curve is elastic we found, and let's consider what happens in this according to this curve. Let's assume it also 4 to 5. I mean, it was previously was 4 and then it was 5, and the quantity supply increased to 100 to 110. So the elasticity of supply is QP and PQ. So Q. Okay, we had a mistake over there, so the price would be 9 in here and 210 in here. So let's assume 10 1 into 9 by 2 10. So what is the value? 10 into 9 divided by 210. So the value is minus 248, which is less than 1. So as the value is less than 1, so and the value of elasticity is less than 1, so it's easily we can say this graph or this product is actually inelastic in condition. Inelastic. So these are the basic, and this is how we find out whether a good is elastic or not. So what we have to do after completing the mathematics, after having the data, we can do a sum and find out whether the goods is elastic or not. So what we have to keep in mind that if the elasticity of supply is equal to 1, it's inelastic. If ES is greater than 1, it's elastic. If ES is less than 1, it's inelastic. If ES is equal to 0, it's perfectly inelastic. If the ES is equal to infinity, that means it is perfectly elastic. So this was our basic, and this is our this is our comparison. After completing the math, we have to compare with these values. How we're going to find out the nature of this product, or nature of that supply product, or nature of that demand product. So this was all about the price, elasticity of demand and supply. So we don't have much more to discuss about elasticity right now. So if you like the video, and of course do give a thumbs up to the video, and if you do have any kind of question about this video, please do comment below and let me know about it and where you got travel. I will try to solve that personally. And if you want to know something special and if you want me to discuss about something else, please let me know in the comment box or inbox me. I will try to discuss about your topics and make another video for you. And of course, please subscribe my channel and stay with me, and of course press the bell icon so that you can get the notification easily for further videos. Thank you very much.